You're listening to the Spirit Podcast.
Welcome back to Beyond the Veil News, everybody. I'm Beck, and tonight the veil is, well, it's acting like it hasn't had its coffee. It's thin, it's twitchy, and it's letting through just enough weirdness to make me question whether we're in the right timeline, or if someone hit shuffle on the cosmic playlist again. Tonight, I've got a set of stories that the mainstream doesn't touch, mostly because they still believe reality is supposed to behave. Bless their hearts. First up, animals acting strange after that massive solar flare. I'm talking birds, deer, fish, pets, whole species going nope at the same time. If nature is sending a group text, we should probably read it. Then we're checking in on AI Grandma. Yeah, she's back. And she has upgrades because clearly the future wasn't dystopian enough. There's also a quietly cleaned up alleged UFO crash that officials are scrambling to pretend didn't happen. I'll let you decide whether they're confused or pretending to be confused. Next, the rise of haunted Airbnb complaints, which may be the funniest lawsuit category I've ever seen. If you open the fridge and something breathes back at you, I think you deserve at least a partial refund. And of course, a brand new time traveler trend that's spreading fast, not predictions this time, warnings, patterns, and something almost nobody is talking about yet. We'll have a listener lore straight from someone who now sleeps with every light they own turned on, and honestly, they're valid. I got a few extra sprinkles, too, to add in for headlines. So settle in, grab something warm, maybe check the corners of your room just for fun, because tonight we're stepping beyond the veil, and the veil is definitely trying to get our attention. All right, let's start with one of the strangest patterns from the week, the solar flare, and the way animals reacted to it before anyone else even knew it happened. While the rest of us were scrolling doom on our phones, nature apparently looked up, sensed something shift, and said, absolutely not. All across the country, people have reported bizarre behavior that started almost exactly when the flare hit. Birds gathering in massive silent clusters at weird hours. Deer pacing in circles, refusing to cross certain areas. Cats staring at walls like they were watching someone walk by. Dogs whining, hiding, or refusing to sleep. Fish beaching temporarily, then returning to the water en masse. And farm animals going full Old Testament foreshadowing. Now, animals react to environmental shifts all the time. Earthquakes, storms, pressure drops. But solar flares? They shouldn't respond like this, except they did. And what makes it stranger is how uniform this behavior was. It didn't matter what species it was or what part of the country. Everything responded with the same message. Something changed. Some researchers claim the flare overloaded the magnetic field just enough to confuse certain species, but confusion doesn't explain the pattern. Confusion is chaotic. This was organized, timed, a kind of instinctual mass alert. And here's the eerie part. In folklore, animals were always considered the first sensors of thinning boundaries. They don't intellectualize it, they just feel it. The old stories say, when animals act strange, it's because the field around us is shifting in ways the human nervous system hasn't caught up to yet. And this week, the field definitely shifted. This is one of those moments where science has an explanation. Folklore has an explanation, and the truth probably lives in the space between them. But no matter how you slice it, the animals noticed something we didn't. Or maybe they noticed something we ignored. All right, let's talk about the story that makes me question whether we're living in the future or the world's strangest Black Mirror spinoff. AI Grandma is back, and apparently she's been upgraded. If you missed the original, an app surfaced earlier this year where you record your elder, just a few minutes of talking, moving, laughing, and after they pass, the app generates an AI version of them that can speak to you forever, like a digital ghost or a chatbot wearing your grandmother's face. Well, that was just apparently phase one, because this week the developers announced a new round of features, including adaptive memory, emotional attachment metrics, daily check-ins, and my personal favorite, long-term relational imprinting, which basically means AI grandma now learns your habits, your routines, your moods, and responds like she knows you. Now, some people love this idea, and I get it. Losing someone hurts. But there is something deeply unsettling about letting an algorithm mimic a soul. Your grandmother didn't just talk to you. She knew you. She had a spirit, a presence, a lineage behind her. The digital version doesn't. It's a simulation wearing her shape. And what concerns me most, honestly, isn't the tech. It's how quickly people bond with it. How easily we replace real grief with artificial comfort. Grief is supposed to transform you. It's not meant to be bypassed by a subscription model. This week alone, dozens of parents posted videos of their kids talking to AI grandma like she's a living member of the family, and that is going to create a whole new category of psychological and spiritual confusion in the next generation. When a child grows up bonding with a digital ancestor instead of a real one, what does that do to their sense of lineage, or identity, or connection to the actual soul of the person? Now, I'm not saying AI grandma is dangerous, but I'm also not saying she isn't. At minimum, we're playing with something sacred. At maximum, we're teaching children to trust simulations over the ancestral voices that actually walk with them. AI can imitate a grandmother, but it cannot replace one. Moving on to something that slipped under the radar this week, almost like it was meant to. A very small, very brief report surfaced online about an alleged UFO crash in a rural area. And before anyone could screenshot, clip, or save it, the report disappeared. Classic. It started as a local emergency scanner transmission just after midnight. Unknown aerial object down. That's it. No plane ID, no aircraft type, just unknown. Minutes later, residents in the area reported a flash of white-green light in the sky, a heavy, concussive thud, and a low humming sound that continued for nearly 30 seconds after impact. Then the weirdness began. Within an hour, the area was swarming with unmarked vehicles. Not military, unmarked. No insignias, no plates, just Matt trucks and men with radios. Locals say the cleanup took less than 4 hours. That's unheard of. You can't clean up a barn fire in 4 hours. Whatever fell, it was small or extremely valuable. By morning, the crash site was graded flat and covered with temporary fencing, and when residents called the local authorities, every official said the same thing. There was no crash, like they rehearsed it. Here's the part that gets me. Several residents said their phones glitched for hours afterward. Not lost signal, glitched. Photos turning black, audio distorting, screens flickering. One woman's phone kept recording by itself with no files saved. Now, that's not debris, that's interference. This has the same signature as other quiet crashes from the last decade. The ones where the object is recovered fast, the area is sterilized, and the story never hits the news cycle. And if you want the truth and fire undertone, objects like this don't fall by accident. They fall because something failed, something broke, or something left its position. The skies have been active lately. Too active. And events like this are usually the kind of thing that marks the start of a cluster. This won't be the last sighting we hear about, but it might be the last crash they let slip through the cracks. The veil didn't just thin this week, it rattled. All right, this next story absolutely cracked me up because it feels like the natural evolution of the gig economy, but with ghosts. There's been a spike, and I mean a genuine spike, in reports of haunted Airbnbs. And not in the cute, oh, I heard a noise way. We're talking full paranormal reviews.
5 stars, beautiful home, excellent location, but the shadow man in the hallway wouldn't stop watching me brush my teeth.
People are posting videos of closet doors opening by themselves, lights flickering in patterns, faucets turning on at 3 a.m., and one guest swears a rocking chair started moving the moment they laid down in bed. Now here's where it gets even more ridiculous. Some guests are demanding refunds because the haunting wasn't listed as an amenity. Honestly fair. If I book a stay and the house contains a transparent roommate who stands in the corner like he's waiting for a jump scare cue, I would at least want 20% off my total. But the hosts, they are even funnier. Several have claimed,
"There's no ghost, it must have been the HVAC system."
right, because the HVAC system is known for whispering full sentences in Victorian accents. Others blame old plumbing, drafts, or quirky architecture. And one host actually wrote,
"We've never seen the woman in white, but some guests have stronger imaginations."
Sir, if multiple guests have seen the same woman in the same white dress in the same hallway, that's not imagination, that's a coworker you're refusing to acknowledge. But here's the deeper layer and why this story matters. Airbnbs are often older homes, repurposed, renovated, and filled with people cycling through constantly. Spirits hate that. They don't like transients. They like stability. Kind of like a cat, right? Continuity, routine. When the energetic tenants change every 3 days, it disrupts the field. So these hauntings aren't new. They're just annoyed. Imagine being a ghost trying to do your nightly spectral pacing, and every 72 hours, new people show up from Denver with a suitcase and an oat milk latte. Airbnbs are the perfect storm. Old structures with emotional history, plus high guest turnover, plus low spiritual maintenance. The result? Hauntings with an attitude problem. So, yes, refund the guests. And maybe sage the house, possibly hire a priest, or at least list resident apparition under house rules so nobody's surprised. Now this headline, this one has a different flavor than usual.
I'm from the year 2749 and everyone eats holograms.
TikTok prophecies. There's a new wave of supposed time travelers online, but instead of dropping dates, doomsday predictions, or lottery numbers, they're all repeating the same warning in slightly different ways. And it's this: pay attention to the shifts you can't name yet. That's it. Not a threat, not a prophecy, not a timeline, a pattern. What's weird is how synchronized the messaging is. None of them are using the same sound, the same phrasing, or referencing each other. But the underlying sentiment is identical. People are waking up faster than expected. Something is being revealed in small pieces. Not a single event, but a sequence. Watch the ones who disappear quietly. November through February will feel out of order. One creator claims they're from 2137. Another one says 2720. One says they're not from a year, they're from a branch. But again, same undertone. Here's the part that caught my attention. Multiple accounts all mention time feeling glitchy, like weeks folding oddly or days blending unnaturally. You know, the thing normal people on Earth have been complaining about for months. We've seen time traveler trends before. They're usually chaotic, inconsistent, and honestly pretty entertaining. Predicting alien arrivals on Tuesdays, portals at Target, oceans evaporating, you name it. But this wave, no theatrics, no specifics, just a shared sensation that something's shifting. Almost like they're not predicting a future event. They're responding to a present one. And here's where it gets interesting from a folklore angle. Every culture has stories of messengers, beings or people who show up right before a shift to say, pay attention. Now, they're not prophets, and they're not oracles. They're observers, witnesses who show up at hinge moments. Whether these accounts are real, fictional, AI-generated, or just a collective unconscious surfacing through trend cycles, the messaging is consistent. Something subtle is moving. You're supposed to notice the misalignment. You're supposed to feel the weirdness. And honestly, if the veil has been acting the way it has lately, I wouldn't be surprised if people are picking up on things they don't have language for yet. Time travelers or not, the pattern itself is the point. For tonight's strange tale from History Shadow, we're traveling back to a winter evening in 1892, to a quiet Massachusetts town that no longer exists on modern maps. It was called Grafton Hollow, and at the time it had one church, one schoolhouse, and a population small enough that everyone knew everyone else's business, living or otherwise. Kind of sounds like Little House on the Prairie. For decades, Grafton Hollow was known for one thing: the old church bell. It had been cast in the early 1700s, forged with a mixture of bronze and something the original blacksmith described only as a metal that wasn't from here. Nobody questioned it. This was the 18th century, after all. But people noticed the bell had a strange sound. It didn't ring like the other bells. It hummed. It vibrated in the bones. It was said to make dogs whine and infants go silent, as if it was speaking on a frequency outside of human hearing. For over 150 years, the bell did its job, calling people to worship, marking weddings, declaring fires, announcing deaths. But on the night of January 12th, 1892, something changed. Without anyone near the tower, without a storm, without wind, without any physical disturbance, the bell began ringing on its own. At first, the villagers thought it was a prank. Maybe some boys pulling the rope. But when the people gathered outside the church, they found the rope perfectly still, untouched, swaying gently like something invisible had just let go of it. The bell continued. 6 slow tolls. Then a pause. Then 7. 6, 7. Repeated again and again with unnatural precision. People fled the square. Livestock panicked. Every house in Grafton Hollow lit a lantern, convinced something had crossed into the world that shouldn't have. By morning, the bell had gone silent, and here's where the story turns uncanny. Exactly 6 months later, to the day, a fire swept through Grafton Hollow, destroying nearly every building. No one died, but almost everyone left afterwards swearing the town felt wrong. Now, hollow. Emptied. 7 months after that, the church collapsed on its own in perfectly calm weather, as if something had pulled the beams inward. Today, Grafton Hollow is gone. The area is reforested, but hikers report something strange. If you stand near where the church once stood, and the wind hits a certain angle, you can hear a low metallic hum. Not ringing, not an echo, just the hum of a bell that hasn't existed for over a century. Local historians call it superstition. Folklorists call it a residual haunting, but old-timers say something different. The bell wasn't warning us about death. It was warning us about change. And in a way, that's the signature of all true hauntings. Not fear, but foreshadowing. Tonight's listener lore comes from Alyssa in Vermont, who wrote in with a story that honestly made me pause and look at my own staircase for a solid minute afterward. Alyssa says she lived in an older farmhouse built in the early 1900s, the kind of place where, in her words, the floors creak, the walls breathe, and the attic definitely has opinions. She lives there with her husband and their dog Milo, who has never once shown a hint of fear in his entire chaotic golden retriever existence until 3 weeks ago. Alyssa said it started with the sound of footsteps on the stairs, not the random settling of wood. These were paced, even, heavy, like someone walking down the steps slowly and stopping on the 7th stair every time. At first, she assumed it was her husband, until one night the footsteps started while he was sitting right next to her. She said Milo lifted his head, stared at the staircase, growled once, and then crawled into her lap. The 70-pound dog, who eats ice cubes and drywall for fun, suddenly acted like something was standing between them and the upstairs hallway. That was the first night. The second night, it got weirder. Alyssa woke up at 3:14 a.m., of course, and saw a light in the stairwell, not bright, just the faint outline of something illuminated. She thought maybe the moon was coming in through the window until the light moved. She described it as a white silhouette, a shape of a person but without features, standing on the 7th step, still, quiet, like it was listening. She blinked and it was gone. But the next morning, she found something on the step, a single penny dated 1914, the year the house was built. Now, she swears they don't collect old coins, and she's never seen that penny before. She put it on the counter, and 2 nights later, another one appeared. Same step, same date. That's when she wrote in. She asked me what I think it is. And here's my honest take. Some spirits, they don't announce themselves with fear. Some announce themselves with pattern, repetition, a small object placed with intention, a step chosen again and again, a year tied to memory. Now, this doesn't feel malevolent to me. It feels like a residual presence becoming intelligent, or an intelligent presence using repetition to make itself known gently without crossing into threat. Old houses remember. Some spirits linger in those memories, and sometimes when the veil flickers just right, they want someone to know they're still there. So, Alyssa, if you're listening, thank you for the story, and maybe keep that penny somewhere safe. Sometimes the smallest things carry the strongest echoes. This next story has been quietly passing through hospital networks, and it's one of those whispers that usually indicates something bigger happening under the surface. Several nurses, EMTs, and night shift workers in different states have reported the same strange pattern. Patients waking from sedation, fever dreams, or anesthesia, describing the same imagery. Not similar. Not vaguely connected. The same themes. A long hallway with no doors. A low hum like machinery behind a wall. A tall figure standing at the end, not moving. And an overwhelming sense of being observed. One patient described it as a place between places. Another said, "I don't think it was a dream. I think it was a waiting room for something." Hospital staff say they normally hear all kinds of wild dream accounts. Anesthesia can produce everything from opera hallucinations to talking animals, but this is different. This is synchronized. Some doctors are brushing it off as the power of suggestion, but these patients weren't in the same rooms. They didn't know each other, and they had no shared media exposure. What's even stranger, a few staff members have admitted that they've had the same dream recently. A hallway, a hum, a watcher. Whatever this is, it feels like a collective subconscious moment, almost like the human psyche is pinging on the same frequency at the same time. And historically, shared dreams show up right before shifts in the field, world events, and awakenings. This one's worth watching. This next headline feels like it walked right out of an Indiana Jones film, but it's real, and archaeologists are still scratching their heads. A newly uncovered burial chamber was discovered inside the solid wall of a previously mapped ancient structure, meaning the chamber literally appeared where, according to measurements, empty stone used to be. It was found when a small section of the wall collapsed unexpectedly, revealing a hollow interior covered in fully intact carvings, pottery, and human remains. Here's the bizarre part. Every archaeological scan ever taken of that structure, including 3 done in the last 5 years, showed no cavity, no chamber, no anomaly, just stone. It's as if the room wasn't there until now. Historians are baffled, folklorists are thrilled, because this lines up with a rare phenomenon described in old European and Middle Eastern lore, sites that return when they are needed, places hidden, then revealed, as if the past itself shifts to deliver a message. Some chambers, the stories say, appear in times of transition, when the veil opens or when the collective consciousness begins to change. Whether this is in a natural cave-in coincidence or something more, the timing is uncanny. Archaeologists don't like admitting that sometimes history moves, but this chamber seems to have arrived with purpose. This one's short, but it hits hard. The jogger in Illinois reported walking home around 9:30 p.m., stepping under a street light, and then the next thing he knew, he blinked, and it was 11:37 p.m. He was standing in the same exact spot, same posture, same foot, mid-step, no fall, no blackout, no collapse, 2 hours gone. Now, security cam footage from a nearby shop shows the streetlight flicker once, and then the man simply doesn't move for 2 hours. No sway, no shifting, no breathing visible, just frozen. Then the lights flicker again, and he snaps back into motion like he never paused. Doctors say there's no medical explanation. He has no history of seizures, sleepwalking, dissociation, or neurological disorders. The man described the moment like this.
Everything went quiet, like I stepped out of the world for a minute, except it wasn't a minute.
Time slips are rare. True ones are even rarer. But when they do show up, they tend to cluster. And given the other stories we've covered tonight, this kind of fits the pattern. Hospitals have their share of administrative errors, misspellings, mixed up charts, the occasional case of 2 John Smiths in the same ward. But this is different. A hospital intake system flagged an error last week for 2 new patients with the same full name, born the same year, admitted the same morning for different reasons. Weirder still, multiple nurses swear the 2 men looked identical. Not similar, not cousins, identical. Both claim they had no idea who the other was. Both had different addresses, different jobs, and different emergency contacts. Here's the creepiest part. When staff tried to pull the security footage from both admissions, the video system glitched. One man appears, the other does not. Not erased, not corrupted, just missing. Doctors chalk it up to a computer error. Nurses say no. They saw 2 men with the same face and the same name. And of course, I have to go into the folklore explanation. Sometimes the veil gets thin enough that paths cross. Sometimes 2 versions of a person show up at the same place. And sometimes the cameras don't know which reality to record. Our final headline tonight circles back to the solar flare because apparently it affected more than just technology and house pets. Dozens of videos have surfaced showing mass gatherings of ravens on rooftops, power lines, church steeples, barns, all eerily silent, all watching the same direction. Ravens don't normally gather in huge groups like this unless there's a food source or a predator. But in these videos, they're not looking down. They're looking outward, like they're waiting. And ravens have always been omen birds, not bad omens, not evil, just watchers, messengers, the ones who notice what humans don't. Combine that with the animal behavior earlier, the time slip, the shared dreams, the UFO incident, the tomb that arrived, and the electrical glitches everywhere, and it paints a picture. One we don't fully understand yet, but one that definitely has the ravens paying attention. Animals sense things, but ravens? Ravens understand things. So when they gather silently, something is shifting. And that wraps up tonight's journey through the strange, the symbolic, and the stuff that absolutely does not behave according to the laws of physics as we were taught them. If there's one thing to take from all these stories, the animals acting like they got a cosmic group text, the dreams people keep sharing, the tomb that shouldn't exist, the doubles in the hospital, the ravens gathering like they're waiting for the next chapter, it's this. The world is whispering, and more people are finally hearing it. Not in loud, dramatic ways, in quiet ones, in patterns, in moments that don't match the rational world but feel true. That's the beauty of nights like this. You get to notice the cracks in the veneer. You get to see what's underneath. You get to remember that the veil isn't broken. It's just tired of pretending it's opaque. So, thank you for spending your night with me, for keeping your curiosity intact, and for choosing the path where mystery is still allowed to mean something. If tonight's stories made you shiver, laugh, or stare into the corner of your room for a second longer than usual, do me a favor. Share this episode. And hit the follow. And if you still feel called, you can support the show on Ko-fi or drop a super chat or Whatever keeps the lantern lit and the signal clear. But most of all, trust your instincts this week. Trust your dreams. Trust the way the animals are reacting. And trust the way the world feels before your mind tries to explain it. Because the veil hasn't just thinned. It's paying attention. Until next time, keep your senses sharp, your heart steady, and your path lit.
To the spirit
Podcast.
supernatural science
Aliens. I'm ghost.
psychic mystic
Spirit.
divine source heaven the dead
It's magic.